Okay, looks like I should be live here. Just going to be talking about some more of the same stuff. I just thought of a couple extra things. Plus, they're finally they came out with an actual swing state polls that I can look at that should give me some idea, give us some idea of how Kamala might end up doing. I'm just gonna wait here for a second because I always want to make sure it actually pops up. And it looks like we're going to be on a massive delay. So anyway, I'll just get going. I should be able to hear it whenever it finally starts up in the other side there. Uh there we go. Jesus Christ. That's like a on like a 20 almost like a minute delay, like a 50-second delay. So that's pretty crazy. So probably not going to be able to if you say something in the chat, I'm probably not going to be able to respond to you in a very timely manner. Anyway, what we're going to be looking at, well, there's a couple things. First, I got something wrong from yesterday. The thing I said about Arizona, essentially, I had that completely ass backward. The abortion law there, it's not that it's going to be enacted in September; it's going to be repealed in September. So I guess it was already activated, and they suspended it, so they weren't enforcing it, and then they're going to repeal it in September. So that's basically a total non-factor. So it doesn't change anything there, which makes me think, Arizona's totally out of reach. I mean, not completely, because like I'm about to talk about right now, they had a poll come out, and it's the same ones I've been looking at for the swing state polls. I don't know how biased it is or whatever. I know people have different polls that they like or hate or whatever. I've just been using this Emerson one because I like the way they put their data out. It's just digestible, and it's the only they're not. I don't know. I hate all the extra information type of shit that you don't really fucking need, like general election stuff, and it just doesn't fucking matter. Like the general election, I guess, gives you an idea of some things. It's just not like who's going to win. It'll give you the only important thing about the general election polls, which is basically just a popular vote polls of the whole country, is that it will let you know how much more like relative power one campaign has versus the other, because they've got more support. They're more popular in terms of raw numbers, means they get more money and more volunteers and more workers and more people to go push their shit in all of these swing states where it actually fucking matters. So that's the only way I see those as really being relevant, other than just like bragging rights and like general enthusiasm and stuff. But here, I'll go ahead and throw this up because she did better than I thought, actually. And then, I don't know, was there anything else to talk about? Oh yeah, there's all the shit with Netanyahu. I might talk about that. People were giving him a lot of bullshit. All right, let's throw this up here. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see that. I can see it pretty well. Essentially, it was like what I said yesterday. She was losing, or I said she was doing the same or better. She's doing better everywhere. She's doing better in every one of the swing states. This one only has the 5 that are really relevant. They're not even like looking at Nevada or Virginia anymore, or North Carolina or places like that, which I think is good. I don't think like those places seem like they're just done. They seem like they're done fucking deals. So probably best to ignore them. They might try and get greedy though. You never know. Anyway, right up here, the first one, Arizona. I was already talking about that. There's Trump's winning by 5 points, so it's not like completely out of the realm of possibility. There's 7% that says undecided, and I guess this doesn't tell me. Does this tell me if this was likely or registered? Because they poll different people. It's either going to be likely voters or registered voters, which is not. There's a lot of overlap, but it's not really quite the same. So he's doing really well there, and that's probably not going to change at all. They'll probably push all the shit about Kamala with the border, and that could maybe hurt her. The other places were kind of surprising, though. So, like Georgia, she was only down by 2 points, which Biden, I believe, was down by a lot more than that. Like a lot. I thought she was down by more than that. That's very close. That should be. I mean, I didn't look at the exact um, margin of error for this poll, but it doesn't fucking matter. It's never going to be like 2 points. That's probably within the margin. All the rest of these should be within the margin. They're all like 1 or 2 points. Every one of them, literally. Georgia, she's down by 2. Michigan, she's only down by 1. Pennsylvania down by 2. Wisconsin tied. So that's still bad. You know, she's still losing in all of them. She's not winning any of them. But she's only had a campaign for like 1 week. And she's doing better than Biden, who spent, God knows how much money and time. So he didn't personally spend a lot of time. Man hours, I guess you should say. He was doing other stuff. Sleeping mostly, I guess. But this is all stuff they could work with. I don't see why. And like I said last time, she only needs like 3 of these. 3 of these 5, and she can win. Assuming one of the 3 is Pennsylvania, which I said before, she's got to get that one. She's only down by 2 points. That's why I said yesterday I think she'll do Josh Shapiro. And when you look at the undecided, it's not huge, but it's enough to completely change it in either direction. Obviously, even if it's a fraction, even if only a fraction of these undecided people actually do vote, that'll make the difference. That'll be what determines the election. Actually, in every one of these states, really, except Arizona. That one's starting to get, because not all these undecided people are going to vote for either of these people or vote at all. They're probably, a lot of them, going to vote for RFK. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. A lot of MAGA types demanded the Secret Service director resign because she failed to protect the former president, but they do not hold the same standard for Trump during January 6th. Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of that. But really, the push to get the Secret Service director to resign, that was completely bipartisan. Everybody, even Democrats, were saying she should resign. It was just it wasn't just the failure of security. It was, if you watched that, what do you call it? That was at the congressional hearing or whatever, where they were grilling her. She didn't have an answer for anything. Like, and when I say an answer, I don't even mean like basic stuff you would think she would know. She just did not know. She could not tell them, like, what was the plan for this? Why did this happen? And she had plenty of time to prepare for this. And this is pretty basic kind of shit. She just had no idea. In this election, I would still write in John Bolton because both Trump and Kamala have terrible foreign policy. That's 100% true. That's 100% true. We can get to that in a minute, talking about the Netanyahu thing, where she put out a statement, Kamala did, about the protests outside. You probably heard of this, where they vandalized like a Christopher Columbus statue and a Liberty Bell replica and some burned American flags and stuff. And she put out an okay statement, but one of the things in there was not, also, I stand with Israel. And on top of this, she did not attend the speech that Netanyahu was giving. And this was, I believe, a joint session of Congress, which normally the vice president would be there because she's, campaigning or not, like, this is still her job. She's still the vice president. She's the head of Congress. And when I say Congress, I don't mean, I mean, she's the president of the Senate, but she's really like, usually I would say kind of the head of the congressional body almost as a whole. Not like the head, like she's in charge of it, but the, how would I put this? Like the arbitrator, I guess, or the, she's the one that would oversee this shit if you have a joint session of Congress. Like, it's like what happened. That's why Mike Pence was there on January 6th. That's what he was doing. He's supposed to count the votes, right? So he's the one leading the thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, so she should have been there for that. And a lot of the Democrats didn't show up. It was horrible look for the Democrats to not show up. when, we had Netanyahu, who's the leading, whether you like him or not, doesn't so much matter. He's the elected leader of an allied nation who's like coming to talk to us while they're at war and we're supporting them in that war. Sort of. Like some of us are anyway. And it's so strange too, because like historically, this would never have been an issue. Israel, this is like the least popular I've ever seen them, and it's mostly the Democrats. There's a few Republicans. There's like a smattering of them, but they're like, from what I can tell, mostly those weirdo kind of libertarian people who are. Some of them are just anti-Semitic. Others, like Rand Paul, I think just doesn't ever want to spend money on anything, and you're seeing more of those people. Predictions that Trump will win, the Republicans will win the Senate, with Larry Hogan being the deciding vote, while Democrats win the House of Representatives. That could be. I mean, that's possible. I think Trump's going to win too, as of right now. That's what everything points to. I think it's, looking at these polls I have on the screen right now, though, it seems less likely than I initially thought. It's going to be really close, is what I'm trying to say. And we'll know more. And I'll get into some reasons, I guess, why I think she has a better shot than I initially would have thought. Okay. So, first off, I was saying, before, a couple streams ago, a few weeks ago, when they were considering this, and I was saying it couldn't be her because she'd be a terrible option. I still don't think she was the best option for him, other than it just makes everything a little smoother and easier, because they are putting up a huge stink about doing this at all. And by doing this, I mean switching out candidates. The Republicans are giving them a lot of shit. They're trying to file lawsuits, like campaign finance lawsuits and stuff. And so this does make it a lot easier for them to defend against that kind of stuff. They're saying, well, she was on the ticket, she was the VP. So there's that. They're giving Joe Biden shit about saying, like, well, why did he even step down? He hasn't answered why he stepped. It's like, bro, everybody fucking knows why he stepped down, because he was losing. He didn't directly say that in his speech yesterday. Basically, he did say that. And I know all the Republicans are like, he never gave us an answer. He said, I stepped down to unite the party. Like, what the fuck do you think that means? That means he stepped down because he wasn't even popular in his own party, and his own party wanted him to leave because he was losing, because he's old. So, yeah, he didn't spell it out on like a whiteboard. I'm not even sure if he could do that at this point, but there it was. Anyway, back to Kamala. I think I sort of underestimated her, because I was thinking she probably didn't have a lot better chance than Joe, other than she's not old and like dead. These numbers make it look like she has a much better chance, because this could improve a lot. And it's already very close. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I'm probably biased against her because I personally find her annoying, and I don't like her. However, most people don't know anything about her. A lot of people compare her to Hillary Clinton, right? And they're like, this is just like with Hillary. It's going to be just the same way. Hillary was hated, unpopular, and it's because she's like an insufferable person like Hillary is. But Hillary it wasn't just that. Everybody knew who Hillary was. She had a massive record to attack. She had been in the public eye at the highest levels for decades. And it's nothing like Kamala Harris. I was trying to explain this to some people like the other day about basically saying how we don't really know anything about JD Vance. He's like an unknown figure, and people not really getting what that means. They're like, well, he's famous because he wrote this book, and we know that he held this job, and he's from this place. It's like basic biographical information about a person. Or you might know like some of their political positions, right? Like you can guess at their political positions. It's not the same as having like an extensive public record where it's not just like guesswork of, oh, well, this person said this in an interview one time, or and this is why they're giving so much shit to JD Vance, because even when you look at the stuff he said in interviews, it's all incoherent. He flip-flops back and forth like radically. So you really know nothing about the fucking guy. Like just a couple years ago, he was saying Trump is, a rapist and the American Hitler. And now he's saying Trump is he's somewhere between George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. He's somewhere in there. and so you just nothing. With Hillary, she went from being first lady for like 2 terms to being a senator for God knows how long. Was she a senator all through the Bush years? I don't know. She was senator for quite a while, and then she was secretary of Secretary of State for 2 terms. That's a massive fucking record, and she was also out there in the public doing interviews, and she had a record of policy. Like you just knew a ton about it. She actually did things. And that was also baggage because a lot of people hated the stuff she did. She had a ton of scandals. There's a lot of stuff you can criticize about things a person has actually done. When you look at Kamala, they're trying to do that with her. She's kind of in between those two. She's got more to look at than J.D. Vance does. Nothing like Hillary Clinton. Nothing like that. She's not going to have, like you look at what they're trying to get her on now, the border. How much influence does she really have there? That's like the one thing she maybe halfway did or was at least supposed to. The vice presidency is like a nothing burger of a job. It's a nothing burger of a job. Your job is to wait for the president to die. That's like basically it. There's the arbitrating things you do. She cast some tie-breaking votes in the Senate. So you can get her on some stuff like that. She had a Senate record, but again, not a long one. She was a senator only for like 3 or 4 years. I think two or three before, I guess it was 3 before she started running for president. And then she was AG of California. And once you're getting down to the state level, it's like, well, that's who gives a shit. Maybe there's some things you could talk about. They're even trying to get her on some stuff from that. They're trying to say, like back when she was a prosecutor, she was too hard on drug dealers. I don't know. That's a weird line. Some people are saying she was too hard on the drug dealers, and others are saying she was a soft on crime prosecutor. I don't know how they're going to square that circle. This is Republicans both saying this. They're simultaneously saying she was too hard on the potheads and too soft on crime. So I don't get that. But essentially what I'm saying with her is most people are not going to have any idea about any of the shit I just fucking told you at all. At all. Even the people that are kind of halfway aware are like would know a lot more about Hillary than they would about someone like Kamala. So she just has less shit. Like she's going to be less unpopular. She's had less chances to piss people off by doing things. The only thing the vice president can do is advise the president, like Pence did with Trump and Cheney did with Bush and others, is replacing the president if something happens. Yeah, I mean, they do have, like I said, they cast the tie-breaking votes in the Senate. They kind of can do, it depends on what the president wants them to do. You can have some like Cheney who took a more active role, and others like Pence who, I would say Pence did a number of things. He was supposed to be like in charge of COVID, I guess. I don't know what they mean though. Whenever they say like we're putting the vice president in charge of something, like I think they mean they're acting as like the president's. They'll act as like a what would you call it? A stand-in for the president on certain things. So like instead of the president visiting your country, maybe you'll get the vice president come visit. And if the president's handling a bunch of shit, maybe they'll deal with like something like, I think they said Kamala was supposed to deal with the border, even though it's very confusing now because now all the Democrats are saying she was never in charge of the border. She had nothing to do with it. She was basically like an ambassador to some countries to negotiate immigration. And then the Republicans are like, no, she was the border czar and she had like complete and total authority. I think it's kind of confusing. I think that essentially the Democrats are more correct about that. What makes it confusing is Biden did say, he basically said that he was putting her in charge. But then when you look at what she was, the following paragraphs after he said that, she was basically being put in charge of negotiating with South American countries about immigration. And that was it. Like, she wasn't in charge of, ICE. That would have been the director of Homeland Security. So she wouldn't have been in charge of like creating the policy around, I don't know, asylum, stuff like that. So anyway, that's my main point in thinking about her, though, is I feel like less people are going to have any idea about her, and she can kind of sort of try and force herself to be whatever it is. Like, she can just like throw herself out there, and hopefully most people, she's going to hope, don't know much about her. And the Republicans, they're not going to know about the shit the Republicans are complaining about, a lot of it, or they're not going to care. If it's something she did at the state level, I don't know. Maybe there will be someone whose mind gets changed about that. The border thing, I think, is their best line of attack. I don't think anyone's going to give a shit that she replaced the president. They switched out candidates. I don't think any of the undecided people are going to give a shit about that. I think the border is their best thing. And then just the general, it would also probably be best for them to just attack Democrats in general and then have her be the stand-in for Democrats. You know what I mean? So just start saying all the stuff that generic Democrat party does, and then say Kamala is a Democrat and she's doing this just like all the other Democrats. If Kamala's in office, she's gonna blah blah blah, teach neo-pronouns in our kindergartens, whatever it is. That kind of thing will probably work well for him. I also think Trump could do something stupid, especially in the debates. So that being said, I think it's going to be really close. I'll pull up that little map here and I can show you what I think it'll probably, the way it'll go, because not a lot has changed since I last did this, because she's not technically winning. Let's look here. Did I cover everything else? I guess I did. Let's throw this sucker up. So I have it set back to the way it was when Biden was in. I think that's like a good starting point for her. So that's, the Democrats would have lost 212 to 326 in the Electoral College. The map would look kind of like this. I'm not 100% sure I got the I got the numbers right. So it's 326 to 212, but I always have to fuck with like the ones, there's these little, like Maine and Nebraska are split, right? So the state splits its electoral votes, and I always have to fiddle with the districts to get it to come out right. It doesn't really matter though, because I don't think those are swing states or districts or anything. I think those are pretty well set. So I said, if she does get Josh Shapiro, let's say she can get Pennsylvania. If she gets him, and she can do that, and those are two big ifs. Even if she does get him, it's not guaranteed, but it's within 2 points. It's close. She might not pick him, though. She might go for somebody else. I think she'd be stupid to try and get Arizona. She'd get that senator from Arizona. I think that'd be dumb. There's dumber picks, but I don't think that would be good. I think if they give up on those two, Nevada and Arizona, she gets Pennsylvania. Wisconsin's basically tied. So if she goes with Josh Shapiro, you'd be looking at a starting point where they're still winning. That's 297 to 231. Say she wins the tie in Wisconsin. Republicans are still winning by a lot. 297 to 241. So she's going to have to get one more. She's going to have to get Michigan or Georgia. She's close. She was only down by, I think, 1 point in Michigan, which is freaking wild to me. Honestly, that's basically a tie. That's essentially a tie. Georgia was 2 points. It's almost a tie, too. So this is what I mean when I was saying, like, it's really freaking close now. If we just give her those two, if she's only got to get one more and she's within 1 or 2 points, this is effectively, when you're trying to, like, project it, it's effectively a tie where there's, like, a tiebreaker going to Trump. Is kind of the way I look at it right now. When you're looking at just the swing states in the Electoral College, he's like barely winning. Now, that doesn't mean this is the case. This is like being very generous to her, because again, you're hoping things go one way. Things could easily go the other way, and Trump just actually does better in all these places. and then you're back to like where you were. You're immediately back to where you were with Biden. So it's hard to tell. Uh, but it's definitely a possibility. So that's why I'm still sticking around at like the 60-40. Trump's probably going to win. I'm going to stay with that until she actually starts winning some of those swing states. If she starts like actually winning in some of them, even if it's only by a point or two, then you can start to think, yeah, she's probably going to, she has like a really, really good chance. But as of right now, it still seems like Trump. Anyway, I guess I covered all the shit from today. The what was it, Netanyahu's speech, and then the Democrats, like, was it half the Democrats didn't show up to that? That's wild. Mike Pence was crucial in changing Trump's opinion, especially on crucial foreign policy decisions. Oh yeah, well, yeah. You were talking about the vice president being like giving advice and stuff. Yeah, that's obviously a huge factor. But I mean, like, what I was talking about before was like their actual responsibilities and roles and power. Obviously, yeah, they're going to be able to. It depends. It depends on every president. Some, like, I doubt Joe Biden was taking any advice at all from Kamala Harris. I highly doubt. Like, why would he? She wasn't in these other partnerships you're talking about. You got to think the dynamics are always different. With Bush Cheney was vastly more experienced than George W. Bush. He was much older too. So there's a ton he could advise him on. Bush wouldn't have had any foreign policy experience, really, right? He had just been governor. I mean, I guess he was. What was he before he was governor? Was he in the Congress? Or I don't remember. But yeah, and then Pence, it would be the same thing. Pence and Trump. Pence at least had experience in politics, and Pence was in the Congress, right? And then he was governor. So he had more experience than Trump too, when it came to politics. At least he wasn't older than him, but he would be much more knowledgeable. Anyway, that's all I got for today. I just wanted to throw that out there, especially the thing about Arizona. That was a bummer. You know, that could have really thrown a monkey wrench into things, but it's not happening. So, but that's not happening. But all the other stuff essentially made it look like it's going to be a lot closer than I initially thought. So it'll be interesting. Interesting to see who she picks. I think she's going to sit on it for a while and wait to use it as like another media bump. It could also be another thing is that this is just representative of a little poll boost that Kamala gets. Just because she just started the campaign, she just announced, and she got a big media hype, and so she gets a little poll bump, and then things, tank right back down to where they were. That could be. This could be like the best she ever does in the polls, and then just slowly declines back to like Joe Biden levels. That could happen. They might introduce her to people, and they just don't like her because these are the like very, very first polls. So basically, the people answering this know nothing about Kamala Harris other than her name. I like when I say that, obviously I don't mean everyone, but you got to remember these are polls of just like common, regular, average fuck face that might show up in a polling booth. They're not gonna. Some of them won't even know who she is. It's just like, oh, who do you prefer, Joe Biden or not Joe Biden, Donald Trump, who they know because he was the president, or this lady? If they even know it's a lady, I don't know how they do the polls. Do they just show Harris versus Trump? They may have no idea what that even means. They're just like, yeah, I guess, whatever. But we'll have to see. Anyway, that's all I got for today. So have a great night.